Welcome back to another video, everyone. I'm Amy. In this video, I'd like to share some personal insight into negative thought patterns, and particularly that voice that we can have in our heads sometimes, which seems like it's trying to drag us down. Hi there, everyone. Nice to see you. So really the main purpose for me making this video is to spread awareness about negative thought patterns, particularly the very destructive and self-sabotaging thought patterns that we can get into. A lot of the time, I know this is true for me, we can seem to be very composed and smiling and okay on the outside, and there could be some very destructive thought patterns going on the inside. It's very, very important that we can bring these thoughts to light, take the shame out of them, because people really struggle alone with this a lot of the time. Perhaps they don't want to burden people, perhaps they're afraid or ashamed to admit what's actually going on inside, or they would like to keep on a brave face, a poker face, and to give off positive vibrations, something like this. And this can become very, very harmful because this is a tough battle that a lot of us have to face, and it's certainly a lot darker and a lot more miserable to go through this on our own. And I think a lot of the times when people take their lives, it can be very, very surprising to close family and friends because they've seemed to be on the outside okay, and meanwhile in their heads it's been a war and a lot of chaos and self-sabotage. So this is something that I know very, very well. For as long as I can remember, I've had very self-critical and shaming thought patterns going off in my head. Over the last year, as I've become more and more conscious and aware, the thoughts, the everyday chatter in my mind have reduced down to almost zero, and this has left behind the thought patterns which are really fueled by emotional trauma and past pain that we may have experienced in our lives. So it's allowed me to look at these more clearly, and particularly this year, because I've taken a lot of action to change my life, I've noticed that this particular negative critical voice has become a lot louder. So to share a little bit of personal insight into what I'm working on in my life at the moment, I've taken a lot of time recently to confront this voice and take the shame away, the fear away, and try to understand it a little bit more. So to start with, I thought it'd be very helpful, particularly if you've come to this video because you have these self-critical negative thought patterns in your mind, to help you to realize that you're not alone. Now, I'm going to share with you some of the thoughts that I personally experience in my brain. I can really divide the two conflicting parts of myself into two persons. There is the very critical, nasty, masculine perpetrator voice, and then there is the needy, childish, victim voice. And a lot of the time there can be conflict between these two voices. We've talked about this in a previous video. It's the trauma cycle, or the drama cycle, that we've talked about with the victim and the perpetrator and the rescuer, and we can get really, really caught up in that. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the childish voice in this video. I'm going to instead allow the perpetrator to speak through me, because at the end of the day, it's a part of me for now. I hope at some point in the future it will be gone completely, but for now it's a part of me that I do accept, and I'm going to allow it to express for the purpose of helping those of you who struggle with similar thought patterns to not feel so alone. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up. This is a very extremely almost a violent and abusive voice, and it could be upsetting for some people to hear. So if you think that maybe you wouldn't be able to handle it, or that you would find it too much, perhaps you'd consider maybe not watching this video. It's also extremely abusive and can swear at me a lot of the time, so I'll try my best to censor that. Now I'm deciding to go into this consciously, so I'll be observing this. I'm taking like a step back and observing this voice coming through me. Now there is a good chance that this does trigger the childish victim and some emotion comes out. So that's, let's see how this goes. So I'm going to be repeating back to you what this voice is now saying to me. What are you doing? No one wants to see you. No one wants to hear you. Go back and hide. You're worthless. You're nothing. And you'll always be nothing. Why are you doing this? You're just going to fail at this. You fail at everything. Look at your life. You failed at everything that you've ever tried to do. You're a complete failure. You're worthless. You're a piece of shit. Why are you doing this? No one wants to see this. No one wants to see you. You're disgusting. They'll be disgusted. They'll be laughing at you. They'll be completely disgusted with you. You're disgusting. They don't like you. They don't want to see you. No one likes you. No one loves you. You're completely alone. You have no one because you're worthless. That's right, you're worthless. You should be ashamed of yourself. I can see what you're doing right now. Why are you doing this? You're not a victim. Nothing bad happened to you. Go back and hide. You're disgusting and worthless. Go and hurt yourself. Go and do it. You should just die. Nothing's going to get better in your life. You're a total failure. That's never going to change. Nothing's ever going to get better for you. Why are you even trying? Why are you trying to stand up? Go back and hide. Stay small. You can't do this. You can't achieve. You can't change your life. Nothing will ever get better for you. Nothing good will ever happen to you because you are worthless. You're a piece of shit and you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. You should be ashamed of yourself right now. Everyone can see you. Everyone will be disgusted with you. Everyone will want to get away from you. No one likes you. No one loves you. You should just die. Just die. Just do it. No one will care. No one will care. No one cares about you. No one loves you. You're bad. And you make everything around you bad. And you just ruin your life. And you ruin everyone's life. So you shouldn't exist. You should just die. Go on. Go and do it. Shut up. Stop talking. No one wants to hear this. No one wants to hear you. No one wants to see you. So just to let you know, I'm completely fine, and this was just passing through me. I think a lot of my life I spent running from this voice, either running from it, trying to suppress it, keep it, shove it down, ignore it, or trying to drown it out, trying to prove it wrong by trying so hard to stay one step ahead of it and to succeed in my life. Because if I could succeed in my life enough, then this voice, I could prove to myself that this voice is wrong. And actually what happened is this voice was always proved right. So it gained momentum because now it has a lot of evidence. Let's just put it this way. You might think that this voice sounds completely insane, and how could she possibly believe this about herself? But there is overwhelming evidence at this point in my life. And this is why it's so important for me right now to take a look at this and to confront it, because now I'm not sure to what level you may have a voice like this in your brain. You know, I know that this voice is extremely unkind and violent and abusive and nasty, and there may be, you know, people there who have nothing like this. Maybe you have something like this in your brain. Maybe you have all of this or worse. This is me being completely vulnerable and not knowing how this will be received, and not knowing if to what extent other people have this and experience this. But this is my little insight, personal insight into what goes off in my brain. Now, I would like to also share some more further insight into my awareness now about this voice, because for so long this voice actually sounded like my voice in my brain, and so I believed and I identified with this voice as being mine. And this is tricky and dangerous, because then it's right and I must do as it says and obey, because it's my voice. And now most of the time actually I can I'm separate from this voice. I recognize it as a separate entity. It appears to me as sort of a dark energy cloud that's sort of leaning over me, saying these things to me now, which is obviously not me. So the first thing that I've noticed as I've tried to understand this further and become more and more aware of this voice and its origin and how it works, and this is probably the most important thing that I would like to say to anyone who has any kind of negative thought pattern like this. There are two kinds of thoughts in your brain. There is the thought that is just chatter, which is just passing through and it's not charged with emotion and trauma. And then there's the thought pattern like this one, which is charged with emotion. And these are the ones which stick to us and become like a cycle that we get into over and over again. But the most important thing that either you can realize or believe me when I say is that this voice, 100%, no matter what it sounds like, no matter how right it seems, is not your voice. It is not your voice. The only voice that would be in your head that is you would be loving and light. Okay? So this voice has been programmed into you at certain points in your life. Now, we're not going to start blaming people for this. Okay? Basically, this is someone else's voice or a mixture of other people's voices that you've collected over your lifetime. We're not going to become victims of this voice. We're going to break the cycle. So let's say, for example, this voice was explicitly expressed to you by someone that was close to you growing up. Okay? Let's say it's the voice of your parents. It might not have actually ever been directly said. So if you're thinking, well, where has this come from? No one has ever said this to me. It could have been indirectly expressed. So thoughts also carry energy and frequency. So if we have a parent growing up that is thinking something about us or about themselves, we can receive that thought subconsciously, subliminally. If you are struggling to believe this, just earlier actually, my cat, I was looking at her, and without even reacting at all in my body or with any body language whatsoever, I had the thought, I want to catch my cat, okay, and put her somewhere in the house. I had this thought, and she's looking at me, and she can absolutely know that that's what I want to do. So normally this cat allows me to pick her up, but now she's running around the house because she can feel the thought. So we can pick up these thoughts subconsciously. So whether or not someone's directly said to you, you're worthless, you're ugly, you're fat, something like that, then it doesn't matter. You could have still picked it up all the same. But we're not going to be victims of these people who had these thoughts for us or about themselves. So for example, your parents could have had these thoughts about themselves and been thinking that about themselves, and you kind of took on that voice as your own. I know this happened with my son actually. Recently in a video I was making with him and his friend, he expressed that some of the voices that he hears in his head, some of his thoughts are insulting. And when I asked him further, can you share what some of these thoughts have been saying to you? He said, well, at school, he didn't finish a task, and the voice said, he's useless. So I asked him, I said, okay, is that voice your own? And he said, yes, because it's in my head. I said, well, what does it sound like? He said, to be honest, it actually sounds like my old head teacher. Okay, it's really interesting. And he was really terrified of his old head teacher. So, this could have been something that she had thought about him or about a student or about herself, and he could have picked up on that. So it's no one's fault and no one's to blame for this. But now we have this, what can we do about it? Well, the first is to, as I just expressed, and I'm going to express it again, is to accept one. The very first step before you try and do anything else, even if you do nothing else, is to just realize that this is not your voice. This never was your voice, and it never will be your voice. So we can take a step away from it and build some space around it and look at it. It starts to lose its power in that respect because it's not me. It doesn't mean anything about me. And the second thing actually is, now this might be difficult to believe after what you've just heard, this voice is not bad. Whoever had this thought that was programmed into me in my life was clearly in a heck of a lot of pain themselves. Okay? They were not conscious. They were not enlightened. They were not acting out of love. They were in so much pain that they were not in control of their emotions, their actions, their words, and their thoughts. They were really, really struggling. So, when we look at it this way, perhaps we can even have some compassion for that voice. It's in a lot of pain. It's completely confused, and it's lashing out at itself, or it's lashing out at others. So we can disbelieve it. Have some compassion. It starts to lose its power. When we start to think of it as an enemy, when we start to think of it as some sort of dark energy, maybe a demon or possession or evil, it has like a certain power to it, right? Oh, I'm being attacked, right? And we go into victim mode. I'm being attacked by this terrible dark energy. Well, no, it's just a very, very traumatized, in pain, confused voice. So we can bring it off the pedestal, have compassion for it. Starts to lose its power. It's human, just like you and I. It's not right. It's just confused. Have some compassion for it. What it thinks is handling things the right way. It thinks it's doing the right thing. But but it's completely confused. So what can we start to do about this voice? This is something that I'm now working on. Well, you can start to, as I'm doing, allow it up. When we try and suppress this voice, what will happen a lot of the time is it will get louder, as I was speaking about in the previous video, is when we, for example, try and cover it up with nice thoughts and affirmations. Oh no, I'm not worthless, I'm wonderful, I'm loved. Well, what will happen is we are hitting it and it hits back. We're pushing down on it and it's pushing back, and it'll get louder and louder because it's not been heard, it's not been allowed to be expressed. Maybe sometime, if you actually allow it to express, it may not even ever come back. It will start to lose its power because it's just energy moving through you. So this is one way that you can handle it, is perhaps on your own or with someone that you trust, just let it out. When we keep it in, and this is, I think, one of the most dangerous cycles that people can get into. I know for myself, this had a lot of power on me when I was keeping it in, right? It was almost like a slave and master relationship going on. Like no one could see. I was totally, wrapped up in this in my mind, meanwhile keeping a completely straight, smiley face on. So no one knew about this. But when you actually bring it out to the light and take some of the shame away from it, it starts to lose its power. Now, a lot of the time, this negative voice, emotional and thought pattern that we're in, this, let's say, perpetrator that I've allowed to stick around when I have been truly honest with myself, which this year has been most about, it's complete and total honesty with myself and also with others, with the world. If this voice has stuck to you for a good amount of time, maybe your whole life, there is always something that you're getting from it, which is subconsciously causing you to keep it around. Now, this may not make a lot of sense, but hear me out. I'll give you an example. So for me, the more and more honest I was with myself and in my healing sessions, I actually had to admit, when I had the opportunity to let this voice go once and for all, to take it down, to blast it away in my mind, in my emotions, to say goodbye to it, I noticed actually there was a reluctance to do so. So I had to take a look further. What am I getting from this voice? And there's two levels to it that I've become aware of. The first is that the childish victim that I was talking about earlier, that other part of me is really struggling with a lot of abandonment and feelings of loneliness. So any masculine figure that's around is better than nothing. So she'll put up with it. She doesn't want to be alone. She'd rather have that voice than no voice, than being completely alone, perhaps disappearing. So that's one level of it. Better to have someone nasty around than no one at all, right? At least this makes sense to the child. And the second level of it, which is, it's a protective mechanism. So this voice, as you could probably tell, was urging me to go back and hide, stay small, and through most of my life has succeeded in getting me to stay small and fail at anything that I ever tried to do. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, this idea of failure. Stay small, go back, hide. No one wants to see you, no one wants to see you. Why would I hold on to that? Well, actually, because it's trying to protect me. Or I believe that it protects me, because if I stand up, right, and I try and do something with my life, well, then I could get completely crushed. I could be hurt. I could be laughed at. I'm leaving myself open and vulnerable when I stand up and do something. So in a way, this voice is trying to protect me, keep me small, stay down, hide, and then you can't get hurt because you're already way, way down. No one can hurt you. So this has been a lot of personal insight from me, allowing myself to be vulnerable with you. But I really felt that it was important to spread awareness to this and to bring it out to the light so that whoever is watching this might feel that they're not alone and start to take a step away from these thought patterns, these beliefs, these voices that we have inside of us. Gain some clarity so they can start to lose their power, because these voices can really take people down. One of my favorite singers who committed suicide in 2017, Chester Bennington, Linkin Park, actually my favorite singer. So I watched an interview with him and he said, you know, there's another Chester inside his brain trying to take him down. And obviously this succeeded in the end, which is why it's so important that we talk about this and stop trying to cover it up with affirmations and stop trying to suppress it and push it down and keep it in the dark and hide and struggle and battle every single day alone with it, right? This is not what I want for you. This is why I'm here, to be completely honest with you, to empower you, to allow you to stand up, be yourself. You don't have to put on a brave face with me. I'm not doing that with you. Just be yourself. Just allow these things to express. Potentially this could save lives. If we just talk about it, let it out. Stop with the shame. Stop with the fighting with ourselves. Just be like, this is me. Here I am. I will not hide. I accept myself. So I hope that you found this video beneficial. Remember to like and subscribe to my channel. I'll be making regular videos like this to empower you to live the life, a free life that you truly deserve. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Lots of love.